Hello students, in this video we are going to study how to measure a query cost. Before we look how to measure a query cost, let's just revise some of our computer concepts. So, what is a track? Like in your hard disk is logically divided into a number of tracks. Something that is concentric in nature, like this concentric circles. Okay, each concentric circle is a track. Each track is logically divided into a number of sectors. You can see here, this is the example of one sector. Okay, so this is one sector, this is the second sector, this is third sector, so this is the third sector, second sector, first sector, and so on. Okay, so there are so many sectors in your hard disk. So the tracks are divided into sectors, and then we are having something known as blocks. So the data is normally stored in blocks in different sectors. So this could be example of one block. Okay, when the data is fetched in terms of a block, you need to imagine that this is what a block is, a combination of various sectors. Okay, the sectors may or may not be continuous. Okay, so basically a block is used to facilitate data access, that is you pick larger chunks of data. Okay, so the number of sectors are logically grouped into a disk block, and each disk block can contain a number of sectors, and each block will have its own identity, and it is identified with a block number. Now let's see, with this knowledge, let's see how we can measure a query cost in DBMS. So cost is generally measured as total elapsed time for answering the query. There are many factors that contribute to the cost, like time, disk access, CPU, or even network communication. So since normally disk access is the predominant cost, and also it is easier to estimate, we measure the cost of the query by taking the disk access into account. So the disk access is measured in time in the terms of number of SICs. So what is a SIC? SIC is the time taken to locate the disk arm to a specified track where the data is to be read or to be written. Okay, so in how much is the number of SICs, in times of that, in measure of that, we can measure the disk access, or number of the blocks that are read, the average block read cost, or the number of blocks that we write, the average time to write to the block, the average time to write the data to the block. So in terms of all of this, the SICs, the number of blocks read or the number of blocks written, we can measure the disk access cost. Remember that the cost to write a block is greater than the cost to read a block. Okay, and data is read back after being written to ensure that the write was successful. Okay, so that's why the cost to read to write a block is greater than the cost to read a block. So for simplicity, we just use the number of block transfers from the disk and the number of SICs as the cost measures. So TT is the time to transfer one block, and TS is the time for one SIC. So if you want to compute the cost for the B block transfers plus S6, then the formula will be B into TT, where B is the block transfers and TT is the time to transfer from one block, plus S, which is the number of SICs, into TS, which is the time for one SIC. So in this formula, we ignore the cost of the CPU. Okay. Also, we do not include the cost of writing the output to the disk. We ignore the cost of buffering, and we also ignore any network time or delay. So the query cost in simple formula will be P into TT plus S into TS. Okay. Thank you for listening.